Commissioners, do you receive the January 7th meeting minutes? Are there any changes, deletions, additions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes as they are. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Under old business, there's none. Under new business, this is a land development plan application for 1171 South Cameron Street. It's zone industrial, filed by Chris Catania.
Catania.
Okay.
Yeah, it's difficult.
All right, sorry about that. With Storage 5 Harrisburg LLC. This is to convert the existing office building to a self-storage facility and construct additional storage unit buildings on site. Jeff?
As you noted, the applicant is proposing to convert the existing office building into a self-storage facility and to construct additional storage unit buildings on site. The property at 1171 South Cameron Street is a 3.72 acre lot featuring a 3-story, 118,422 square foot structure, which was constructed in 1989. The property is bounded by the property at 1119 South Cameron Street to the north, the property at 1100 South 13th Street to the east, the properties at 1100 South 13th Street and 1201 South Cameron Street to the south, and South Cameron Street to the west. This detached structure features elements of a modern architectural style. Character-defining features include the varied facade treatments, including a base of split-face CMU block with vertical metal siding above, the horizontal design elements, the large metal awning over the main entrance, and the stair elevator towers on the northern and southern elevations. Although there is an access point on the front elevation, the main entrance is on the southern elevation and features full-view metal double doors set within a simple masonry surround and sheltered by a red standing seam metal awning with ice stops. There are other entrances around the building, with most featuring solid metal doors and one and double door configurations. Fenestration features plate glass ribbon windows encircling each floor of the building. The building is topped by a flat roof of indeterminate materiality. The building is surrounded by a large surface parking lot with a small gazebo at the base of the ridge to the east of the property. The Cameron Street corridor primarily features industrial and commercial buildings with few distinctive features, with little in the way of design, creating a connective architectural character. As such, while the building does exhibit aspects of modern office building design that are reflected elsewhere in the corridor, the property contributes little to the character of the streetscape and neighborhood. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. Because the property is located in the AE 100-year floodplain, any proposed development is subject to conformance with the regulations in Chapter 7315 of the zoning code, specifically with respect to investment into the existing structure and the construction of new storage buildings on site. And the applicant should construct a separate stairway on the north side of the center driveway connecting to the proposed curb bump out in front of the main entrance to provide dedicated pedestrian access and ensure safer circulation for all potential customers. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The adaptive reuse of a large commercial building as a self-storage facility will ensure rehabilitation and occupancy of a long vacant structure. Proposed site improvements such as access gates, one-way traffic flow, lighting, and new sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure will improve visibility and enhance the safety of customer circulation to and through the property. And finally, the location of the proposed storage facility on a major mixed-use corridor near adjacent municipalities, Steelton and Swatara Township, and the new Interstate 83 access ramps, and proximate to a dense apartment complex to the east, establish conditions that should ensure the viability of the proposed use.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Could you state your name, address, and relationship to the project?
My name is Stephen Taylor. I work for Civil and Environmental Consultants, so I'm representing Storage 5 LLC and Chris Catania. We're located at 4350 Northern Pike in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. As Mr. Knight laid out.
Are you acceptable of the conditions?
Oh, yeah. We did have one question for the stairs. Joe, are you talking about right here where this curve is to just provide a couple steps into this striped area?
And you'd be crossing right across the stop bar into like this thing so that people could walk directly in and they didn't have to like walk through the driveway areas just to prevent vehicular pedestrian conflicts.
And then the bicycle racks, I didn't see anything in the code that specified a number per use or, obviously, we're not anticipating anybody coming to a storage site on a bicycle. That'd be a heck of a trailer and some serious lake power.
Yeah, I do think
so-
it could be, there could be people that use it to store, valuables or something, and you could bring it on a cargo bike or something like that. I think it's not unreasonable to anticipate that somebody may show up there, but having a rack or two is only necessary. We're not talking like
Okay.
10 racks or anything like that.
Okay, yeah, I was just looking for clarification. Right in this area is probably
I was thinking kind of right in this area
Or
by that, because you've got the two.
the bollards and
Yeah,
the- okay.
so they can't really access in there.
okay.
Yeah, just like one or two racks, so that if somebody does ride up, they can walk to it.
That's fine. All right. And then the final was the city arborist was supposed to provide comments as an attachment. We didn't receive those, so I'm not exactly.
Yeah, that was on the digital version that's on the website. So if you go on there, you'll be able to find that.
Okay.
It was a relatively short, it's just, I think, 2 pages. And I,
Put it on paper, we call it over trees.
yeah, right. So I think he's basically saying just maintain the property vegetation on site. Like, he's not expecting to plant new trees or anything like that, given the
Okay.
existing context of the property.
Very good. Okay, yeah, because we just have this, the landscape strip out
Yeah.
front. So maybe we can provide a variety of plants there, versus I think it's just one type of shrub right now.
Sure,
Yeah, we will.
I think once you read through the formal review that he had, again, that's on the website.
Okay.
You'll be able to see if there's anything that you need additional questions about.
Very good. Okay, yeah, I am
Yeah,
good with the conditions of approval.
okay. With that, Commissioners, I have no questions at this time, but if you have questions or concerns, I'll start with Commissioner O'Toole.
Okay, Jeffrey, is this property vacant right now?
Yeah, it's been vacant for about 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm curious, who used to be in there? Was it like one company in there, or was it at least the various?
It was, I think, occupied by Olcam Corporation. Yeah, OLCAM. I'm not exactly sure what they did.
Okay, that's just one of the buildings you drive by and you never think much about. I'm just
Right.
curious. All right, Steve, you're from Monroeville. Do you have other locations here in Harrisburg? Other storage facilities, or?
Not currently. They are looking at a couple of sites in the area. I'm not sure if exactly in Harrisburg, but I've been
Okay.
in talks with that. But
And I take it they have locations in Pittsburgh. Is that the?
yeah, they have locations well, I'm not sure if nationwide is correct, but they're out of Texas, so
Oh, okay.
on the eastern seaboard they have several locations.
All right. Yeah, I know nothing further. It's pretty cut and dry.
Commissioner Reed?
I noticed you're doing 950 units. About what size are those units?
They vary. I think the smallest one is about a 15 by 10, and then 20 by 30 might be the largest. I'm not sure of the interior. I'm not apprised to what exactly they're doing as far as the size.
So how many will you be building versus what's existing?
Yeah, so there's none existing right now. So they're going to be
New buildings? Mhm.
Yeah, the new buildings. I don't know if you would consider them individual. Probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 structures, which will each house several storage unit
Okay,
within each building.
okay. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I guess, is there a demand for, the facilities?
As far as I've heard, yeah, they're looking at multiple sites to build to continually, build self-storage areas, facilities. I know out by my way, near Pittsburgh, they're getting built everywhere. So seems to be like the Dollar General boom. They're just like popping up left and right. So I assume there's a demand.
Are they doing this quite a bit, post-COVID, with all these office buildings being vacant? Converting a lot of them into.
So this is actually the first project I've worked with Storage 5. So I haven't personally seen a ton of those, but yeah, I mean, I know that's a hot ticket, is the reuse of the old office building spaces that are just sitting vacant like this one has been.
Commissioner, okay, Commissioner Moore,
Thanks. I think this is a pretty good use, actually, converting this office space. It's a good set of plans. The only question I had, because it didn't jump out at me on the plans, signage for the property on the site, are you doing any sort of significant signage? I didn't see anything noted.
You know, that hasn't been discussed with us. Storage 5 does have an architect working on their building layout and whatnot, and I believe he would be coordinating with them. As far as, you mean like a building mounted sign for the storage, or like traffic signs, or all of the above?
Particularly building name, company, right? Like at sort of signage for the business, for the use, storage. I'm not as concerned about parking signs. We do have, this is probably front of mind because we do have something in the zoning code around signage. So we'd want to make sure that it adheres to our code requirements.
Sure. Yeah, I do not have any knowledge on that. I can find out exactly where and what size signs they are planning to place, if any.
So perhaps we can add a condition for any new site signage to conform to our zoning code requirements.
I mean, I would say that'd be a requirement anyway. That'd be like saying they would have to, conform to the parking, off-street parking requirements. They would have to do that, and if they didn't, they'd have to come back.
Request a yeah, okay. Okay. That's it.
Commissioner Benson.
No, clever adaptive reuse. I think that fits our overall goals into development. So glad to see. Looking forward to see what type of other, how this space works out.
Jeff, I'm trying to figure out I should know where this location is exactly. Is this where the traffic light on Cameron Street was going to PennDOT, or?
Yeah, it's basically just south of the intersection of Sycamore and South Cameron Street, right across the street from the county mental health, building.
Okay, no, okay. Couldn't picture it. With saying that, is there anyone from the public for or against this project? If you are, state your name and address. No? To my right? No. To my left? No. Commissioner, could I get a motion?
Motion to approve with condition.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, tie goes to the young lady. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Good luck.
Thank you for your time. Nice to meet you.
When I first saw it, I thought it was the one at Cameron and Her Street, sitting there empty for like a decade now. I don't know what they're doing. I think it's a write-off for them. Yeah. The president comes there. Maybe that's his building for himself. Item number 2, this is the zoning code amendment for signage regulations outlined in chapter 7-325 of the zoning code. This is filed by the Harrisburg Planning Bureau. This is to revise and streamline the ordinance to support city businesses and organizations, accommodate modern signage best practices, and ensure new signage designs are compatible with surrounding neighborhoods.
Yep.
Jeff?
So this application was filed by, submitted to ourselves, I guess, filed by the Planning Bureau, but it's it's subsequent to discussion with this body, with the mayor's office, and, basically incorporating comments we've heard over the years from various people, including applicants that come before the Planning Commission Zoning Hearing Board, and seeks to streamline the chapter a bit by kind of removing some unnecessary language, stuff that's never been addressed, like, again, the Christmas tree signs thing, like, I don't think that, not only have we never used it, I can't imagine the scenario where we would. I don't think I've ever even seen a Christmas tree sale, here. So I think there's definitely some, antiquated aspects of the zoning code with respect to our signage. But I also wanted to kind of reorganize the chapter a little to put stuff of like higher importance further up the chapter, like the location of signs and illumination of signs was kind of buried after some other weirder sections. And so kind of wanted to get that right after the main chart there. Also wanted to make just some minor grammatical and formatting changes. But really the driver for this was figuring out how to make our regulations a bit more flexible without kind of increasing the impacts on the neighborhoods in which these places are located. And, that included both making signage a little bit larger so that we're not having a parade of people coming in for, I need a 4 square foot, deviation from the zoning code to be able to get my business advertised. Even in the best of circumstances, that's a 6-week wait for potential business. And of course, every day is important, when you're trying to start a new business. Seeking to like clarify the signage regulations for corner properties, because I know in the past we had somebody who, it was for the, I think, Harrisburg University building where they wanted to do 3 large wall signs on it, but the regulations were a bit unclear. So it kind of sought to, clarify but confirm for the public what they're allowed to do as a by right option. And we also increased it a little bit to say for corner properties, you could do 2 projecting signs instead of just 1, which makes sense. You're going to have 2 frontages on streets. And also to make sure that, we expanded the window signage allowance. And, that's more along the lines of, I think when you see in office buildings, they'll put up these, I think a lot of the home health care, they like fill in all the windows with like their, these images or graphics and sometimes their name. And, that's kind of a little bit of a gray area of if somebody's putting a decal on the window, how exactly should we be measuring that? And is it important to, call that a sign and regulate that? And I think it is, so that we're not just covering windows, that helps to advance public safety by, having that natural surveillance out on the street so people are seen out of buildings and so people on the street can feel seen when you're out there. But also because we usually make a recommendation to new businesses that if you're unsure of what your signage should be, instead of just going and ordering a sign and putting it up there, put up some window decal signs. And so we want to make that, and that's relatively low impact signage, so we want to make that as accessible for businesses as possible, while again, not allowing people to just fill up their windows with all kinds of stuff. And one last thing I think was to address some of the violations that we see with respect to exterior signage, like the kind you see on the outside of convenience stores, where people just put up, the cigars for sale or whatever, different types of products. They might have like Pepsi or something that they just kind of screw into the outside of a building. And also those feather flag signs that you see a lot of times around auto repair shops. They weren't technically permitted under the old zoning code either, but I think there was enough ambiguity that I felt it was important to really call that out so that people could easily reference that in the zoning code. So overall, that was kind of the impetus behind a lot of the changes. But at the end of the day, I'm really interested in hearing what the planning commissioners think with respect to whether the increases in the signage size or maybe the types of signage or number of signs that are proposed under this new amendment are in keeping with line with what you guys were thinking is appropriate based on your experience here.
Yeah, I have no questions, but I think it's a good I think it's a good project that you're doing. Anything to update any of our regulations and, requirements, keeping them up to date is definitely a good thing to do. So I'll turn it over to the commissioners and Commissioner O'Toole.
Jeffrey, will the new ordinance be increasing the signage, the size of signage, different locations or not?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I didn't really shrink any of the signage sizes, but,
That doesn't mean you added to it, though.
right, what's that?
That doesn't mean you increased it, though.
Right, I mean, it was generally minor, like 20-25% increases. I'm not really looking to say you're allowed to do 150 square foot instead of 75 in the commercial general district, for example. I think the one major change we did make was to the size of the by right allowance for billboard sizes. And I did that by looking at the standard size of billboards, which is 672 square feet, and ours was 350, so it's about half. So almost anybody that comes in and wants to do a billboard is going to have to go through that process. I think there will be I imagine there will be some change as the industry transitions over to electronic signage. I think you're probably not going to have those standard plates of 672 square feet. There'll be tall vertical signs, wider signs. So I wanted to make that maybe a little bit more reflective of what the industry standard is. But at the same time, I increased the distance that they had to be from each other and that they had to be from residential lot lines so that it wasn't like we were going to allow our highway corridors, which we really only have two here in the city. We have 81 in the north and 83 here in the south. That you weren't just going to see this proliferation of these large expanses of billboards along the highways, but it seeks to, again, recognize where the industry is and where it might be going, but also to reduce the potential impact on the neighborhoods in which this is, which these may be located.
You say you streamline the process. I mean, somebody coming in wanting relief from a signage ordinance, they'd still have to come before us, though?
Yeah, this doesn't change, it doesn't change any of the review requirements or process if they want something not in conformance with this, but it just seeks to make it so if somebody is looking, to start a new business in the CN district or something like that, and instead of, well, I'm only limited to 25 square feet, which is a 5 by 5 square foot sign. Like, I can see how that would not be sufficient to properly identify and advertise your business. At the same time, we don't want a 75 square foot sign because a lot of these CN zone properties are in, mixed use kind of neighborhood commercial corridor with residents around. We don't want these big gaudy signs that are internally illuminated and like blaring, out at the properties across the street. So I thought to make them a little bigger, while I think actually putting a bit of, I'd say I probably made the lighting regulations for the signage overall a bit more restrictive so that, again, there's not that glare, that illumination, but it still has the appropriate size to advertise, to allow businesses to advertise themselves correctly.
Does this start doing this in other areas, as far as streamlining the whole process, and making it a little easier on the developers and less expensive?
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to do a chapter by chapter kind of approach to this. I think some of the chapters will be easier to do than others. I think, dipping your toe into the off-street parking chapter might be a big lift. But I think this was a good place to start because, again, it's something that I think, I know you've been very vocal about, like, hey, we've got these signs coming in, like, we need to kind of modify our ordinances. But it's, I think something that, again, helps the business community too. So I wouldn't imagine, and again, I tried not to make any of the changes too extreme where people would say, well, this is going to be a major change from maybe what that property across the street from me could be, while at the same time, again, giving a little bit more latitude and flexibility to businesses. Yeah.
Commissioner Reed.
I have no issues with the changes at all. I think they were pretty good. But I do have one little minor thing, since you're making minor grammatical changes and those kinds of things. Would you change the state of Pennsylvania to Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
It's under
I didn't catch that
exempt
one,
signs.
yeah.
It's on there twice.
Commissioner McMurray.
I am really glad that you chose to update this section, so thank you. I like that you updated the chart, and broke out the different, zoning, districts.
Yeah.
Better.
I definitely think, like, I always
Much
find it weird
needed.
that CG and DC were combined, because CG is very auto-oriented and, usually setbacks with buildings and freestanding signs, where you're not gonna have that in the DC district.
Right, okay, all right, so that was what was driving some of your square footage, like for the CG, was taking into account the,
Yeah, like the setbacks from, you largely see
Okay.
that on,
Yeah,
Paxton
okay.
Street, for example.
Okay.
Maybe South 29th Street, but you tend to have these larger setbacks with buildings fronted by parking lots, and so
Yeah.
having larger signage, to advertise that. And, one of the other things I was thinking is having larger signage will hopefully prevent businesses from wanting to just slap signage all over the place. Because I think a lot of times they're like, I need to be seen, and if they feel that our permitted signage is not allowing them to do that, they might try and, put up, again, these kind of cheap poster board kind of things that they put on the outside, so.
Yeah, but there's language in the code too about like construction of signs and,
Yep.
Just the durability of materials and things like that too, so that's good. I think my only question, and I'm certainly not an expert on this, is around the billboards. And like you said, we are seeing some more electronic billboards versus your traditional stationary ones, we'll call them. I don't know what you call them, but 500 number. What was the basis for that? If the industry standard is 672, obviously I agree 375 is too small, but why 500? And I was trying to remember, Lamar Advertising was in here not too long ago, right, with applications, and I think they were submitting some electronic billboards. And I don't remember what the sizings of those were.
I think the one was 550.
Okay.
And I can't remember off the top of my head what the other was. The one was just north of 81
Yeah.
along 6th Street, and the other one was on the Pensy Supply property here
Yes.
off 83. But from what I recall of that conversation, it seemed like there was not, like there were different sizes for those two billboards, so it's not necessarily, so while the industry standard might be 672 square feet, and again, I'm guessing that's based on, these are the panels that we use to make billboards, and so they only come in regular sizes, so that's why they tend to be certain sizes. I think, just giving that seemed like a lot. When I was like, right now, I was like 672 square feet is like huge, and if we just allow that, then maybe we'll see a lot more of these, and, that's not necessarily what we want. We still want to have some a measure of control when something like that comes through, because a billboard is a fairly significant piece of signage. It could be illuminated, which means there's glare. There's certainly, the visual impact of those things. So I'm hoping that, they'll see that, okay, there's a larger allowance, like there's no way we can make it 350, so we're gonna have to come through. But maybe we can make it 500 instead of maybe what we wanted, which was 550 or 672 or whatever. And that will hopefully limit the size of the billboards that come through here.
Okay.
Again, I think you're striking a balance there, and I certainly, wouldn't be averse to either increasing that, decreasing that as the planning commission felt. I don't think it was necessarily, it was a little bit of art and a little bit of science into how that number was determined.
I was hoping Vern would be here to weigh in on the billboard things. I just feel like he deals with those design standards more. I don't at all. So 500, 550, to me, I'm like, what's the difference? If it's 550, why not make it that? It seems sort of arbitrary. I'm just trying to get like a basis for rationale behind it. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts about the billboard sizes. You can weigh in. I know you're going to speak. And then I guess sort of related, I mean, these aren't billboards, they're still illuminated signs that we sometimes see in convenience stores. Where did those fall into category, like?
So I tried to make, so you mean like an open sign or something that you might see?
I mean, some of these convenience stores in the city I've seen have like flat, they have like illuminated, maybe it's like several lines, lottery tickets, or there's like a ticker. It's a moving sort of miniature little billboard on their
Yeah.
store. Where do those fall into the signage language in the code?
Right,
Like, is
so
it, it's not a billboard, is it? Or is
No.
it a regular
So
sign?
So I think what best defines a billboard is, and it's kind of laid out there in the language, is an off-premise sign. So it's like a
Okay,
sign
yeah.
advertising for something that's not on the same property.
Okay.
That's probably a very broad definition, but with respect to the ones that you're talking about, those were not permitted under are not permitted under the existing regulations, and I tried to make it more evident that they are not permitted under the new ones, because, yeah, they've got, like I said, the lotto, there's things spinning around, because
Yeah.
they're trying to attract people. You also have the big, a lot of times the awnings over top, they just cover the whole awnings in like pictures of, I don't know, the food they sell or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that,
I've
so
seen-
you see a lot of different ones, but, that's something I wanted to tackle, and, it's frankly a real challenge there's so many of them, and just so many of these things pop up, and when I'm reviewing a mercantile permit for a new convenience store, I'll put down on the application comments, like, must be in conformance with the signage regulations, and then they go and do that anyway. Like, even if they agreed to it, they'd go and do that and just say, well, I'll take it down when somebody tells me to take it down. But what I'm hoping is that we now have like a section of the zoning code now where I can just say, you're in violation of this section, instead of like, you're
Okay.
in violation of the spirit of the code, maybe.
Okay, so that's basically captured under like prohibited signs, and then even in the chart
Yeah.
of the zoning districts where it says illumination, not allowed. Okay, all right, okay, I got you. All right, that's it, thanks.
Commissioner Vincent?
Yeah, for projects like this, do you have like a more organized change log that we can kind of compare and contrast? So like, hey, increased off premises from 250 to 500. That way it's clear, because like you said it there and I'm looking at the description, but to me, this, from a change management standpoint, it's very, there's certain language like off-premises billboards. Now I see prevent visual pollution in the city.
Yeah.
Is that a typical term, or that seems like almost to open up for certain things? I see a couple of items through comparing and contrasting.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys have, at least in the hard copy packets, are basically like the existing and the proposed, and it's the clean version, so it's kind of like hard to like draw that connection between each of those. I did put the, markup version on the website, and that's just a whole page of red,
Yeah.
a lot of times. And what I wanted to do, it was just kind of a matter of like time, was to leave up all the track changes, but take down like the minor changes I did to like formatting, or like, oh, I underlined this word. And I just didn't have time to go through and like click and like remove all of those. So you just saw like, oh, he moved this section from here to here, or this number changed from this to this. So, and again, I think I had said in an email I sent out that, a decision doesn't need to be made tonight on these. And if we want to hear from the commissioners who aren't here, I think that makes sense too. So ahead of the March meeting, I can certainly do a cleanup edits version of the document.
I mean, to me, like a major changes, minor changes, something that makes it a lot easier than just two documents side by side, especially since some of the chapters are now, slightly off. It's, you're comparing a little bit of different things. So that way it's hey, this change to this change and why.
Right.
And I heard you say it a lot of times, so that's why I was able to underline and capture that. But if that's documented, to me, that makes it easier to make that approval.
Sure.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Since we lost our last person, I guess there's no questions, concerns from the audience.
I just wanted to say, whatever is decided at some point, it's the beginning of a larger picture. For instance, what you talked about how it looks when it would go, for example, for a vote, it looks totally different because, for the legal department, we have to like bracket the things that come out, strike through. So you'd see more in front of you what exactly is different. But also then, even when you agree to, as a planning commission, what the changes are, it then starts like a public period comment. The public would have to be involved. I would imagine that different the different districts have different ideas about what they want in residential as opposed to. So then it could change again, which would require more posting, more signage. Me and Jeff even talked about maybe posting it digitally or in the paper as opposed to trying to figure out where citywide we would post it because it does affect every single district. So there's a lot of other components, but I think the main part in the conversation here is for you guys to come up with a recommendation that you're comfortable with, whether it's what Jeff has right now or right, like when the other commissioners are here, things that you want, and that at least you have a good starting place with a basis for, we agreed with this, and whether it changes or not throughout the public process is one thing. But so I think what Jeff has done is good because he's done a lot of the changes, and if and when you agree on them, it's a good starting off period place for us to then go forward and take to the public. And you have reasons for why he's done certain things, whether it's to keep up with what everybody else is doing, and stuff like that. So I think it is a good start and a good place. And that way, maybe even a good test run. So then when we do go chapter by chapter, you guys get away with how you're doing it, whether it's you submit changes that you like to him to be included, or you guys have that kind of, input at first.
Yep.
However, but it becomes a good test case for how are we gonna roll this out each time? Because inevitably, there's changes that you guys talk about that hopefully will just start to go, chapter by chapter. I'll work with Jeff as much as possible to get, it says somewhere in the NPC too that there's supposed to be a solicitor's summary. I don't know if that means I have to help you guys figure out what the main changes are, And maybe at some point it would be good to have like a text, just outline of what the basic changes are, section by section, so that, people aren't looking back and forth from the chart to this. So I think, we'll all help inform what the process will be going forward and what works best for you guys.
And I think this, this is kind of a dry run, if you will, for maybe other changes, because, going through something like this, I kind of looked back for, okay, when's the last time we did something like this that was, broad and citywide, and it was the density changes to accommodate the affordable housing program of the city. And so, using that and just basically copying those documents and then updating them for the current proposals. But yeah, to Cheers' point, I mean, there may be things we, need to expand on when we do this one, and then so hopefully we get a clean process figured out, and then we can move through the other chapters more quickly. I think there's some that won't be changed, like the Airport Zoning Overlay District. That was like something handed down from the FAA. So I don't foresee stuff changing that to the floodplain overlay ordinance. But I could see changing the specific criteria, that being something we could do. I mean, there's, not specific criteria for some uses that I think there should be. So, adding those, changing those, I think maybe the next chapter. I don't know for sure, though.
Well, it appears the commissioners as well as the staff is sort of, we might not want to vote on this tonight, but we might want to call for a continuation. So I could get a motion on that.
Can a motion to halt for continuation?
Is there a second on the motion? All those in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your input.
Yeah, I think before that density one, I think Neil said, I don't know when the last administration managed to get one through. But but, so.
There's one for bed and breakfast we
Oh,
did
okay.
but those came from outside. Those came from private parties that they were like, hey, we think this helps. So, I mean, that gives you a different perspective of why that change is being made, as opposed to like where the government responding to the private sector of like, hey, how do we do things better? When we're generating it from inside, I think, it probably deserves a little extra scrutiny from other parties.
Jeff, do you have anything under other business?
I do. I have a draft annual report here, so.
Oh, God.
It's like 90% done. I didn't get some of the stuff at the end done, but, as I was looking through, I hadn't sent this email out yet, but as I was looking through our records, we actually only have 5 years of annual reports from like 1986 to 1990. So, not only has it not been done during my tenure, but almost during my lifetime. I'm basically creating something new from scratch. And as I look through this, those last ones, like, they really aren't too robust or anything. They're really, it was just like, here are the commissioners, and it actually had all of their addresses and names and phone numbers on it. So I'm sure you guys don't want me to put that into it. But it kind of talked about, it basically just listed, here are all the variances we did this year. Here are all the blight certifications we did, which is something we did during my tenure here when we still had the Vacant Property Reinvestment Board that we haven't done in like the last 6 years. And then it talked a little bit about like city-led projects like the new Fox Ridge project and stuff that was going on at that time. So obviously things are changed a little bit because now all of that information is still up online to be accessed by the public on our web pages, so we don't really need to call it out. So I tried to have this be a little bit more maybe quantitative, more of a general overview with like quantitative numbers than what was in past ones. So, you kind of see in the first chart here on the second page, the various applications that you guys receive or that the Zoning Hearing Board receives, what the Zoning Hearing Board's decisions were on your resolutions for the past year, but then going back further and saying, here are the number of subdivisions we had in the past 5 years. And obviously there's circumstances why there would be, the number that there are, like 16 land development plans in 2021. We were just coming out of COVID, so there was a lot more activity, but then there's kind of a downtick there. So I think it's just interesting to look at the figures and kind of you get that that pulse of the development activity here in the city when you look through that. The other work section there is the chart I hadn't finished just because it's a kind of time and labor intensive, but it's using my work log, which is not everything we do in the Planning Bureau. My staff have their own individual work logs, but anything that's an outside permit, a mercantile permit, a building permit, floodplain development permit, will come across my desk, so I do have a record of it. And you see the numbers there for 2025. So, we're averaging 210 or so, 220 entries a month, and that's a significant amount. Then after that, you can look down to some of the major accomplishments, and one of the big things that comes up that impacts those numbers in the chart above are the new processes we started this last year in coordination with the Tax Enforcement Office and the Codes Bureau. We updated and kind of expanded the floodplain zoning certificate process, and that's a document that is filed when there's property transfer here in the city. And previously, I think it was just basically handled by the codes administrator, but there was information that the zoning office needed to provide, the zoning allowance, whether there's a historic district, whether you're in a floodplain. So adding that into the process, it lengthens the process, and there were definitely growing pains as we got it up off the ground. But now we're processing them much faster, and we're able to identify before a property changes hands if somebody's going to do something like a conversion, where I can then notify them and say, you have on here, it's proposed 1 unit, it's proposed to be 2 units, just to let you know that this is a zoning relief process that you're going to have to go through, and given the condition or the circumstances of the property, it might not be something that is going to get approved, and maybe that changes the calculus for them. Maybe they decide not to buy it. So, but it's better for them to know up front, and frankly for us to know, because it's less work on after the fact, if we're able to get that information to them. So, we've, I think, bringing those on board, that was initially conveyed to me that might be 5 to 10 a week of those, more like 5 a day. So that tends to be a bit of a time commitment to get those figured out. But we've been doing a lot of stuff, I think, organizationally and administratively in the Planning Bureau this last year with regard to that, with regard to the mercantile permits are now all digital. It used to just be a hard copy document that was passed from department to department as one department finished their review and got it to the next. So that was, cumulative time tended to be longer on that. Now with the new digital one, an email goes out to every department that gets a particular review, whether it's a restaurant or, an office building or something. And so everybody knows up front, so they can all do the kind of work on their own, which definitely shortens the time. And also, when one department is finished reviewing it, the applicant gets an email that says, like, the Planning Bureau has finalized your review, and here's some comments they provided. So, to my earlier comment about the signage for like convenience stores that we would put on the hard copy document, it's like, I don't even know whether that information was necessarily conveyed to the business owner because they would just get like this mercantile form. But now that we have that it's integrated the email into it, now they get that update and it's like, oh, I got denied for this reason, so now I know what I have to address. Or, oh, I see that I'm in a historic district, so that's a concern I'll have to have if I'm planning on any new signage or something. So, what else? Otherwise, our historic preservation specialist, who started in June of last year, has been a great addition. In fact, she's beginning work with our GIS administrator to do a historic preservation map. So that'll be hopefully reflective of the information that's in that historic preservation comprehensive plan chapter. That'll kind of be the first one of those, and then we can build off of that. Otherwise, I think we've done a lot of internal reorganization that has hopefully made the information we're providing out there to the public. We're getting it out there faster, it's more comprehensive, and it allows the public to, I think, better understand what all our role is in the various review things and, what their expectation is as a business owner or a property buyer or something. But yeah, hopefully we'll finish this up and get you a completed one here sometime in the next week or so. I'd say it's about 90% done, so.
If this is open, can we provide suggestions on things we might want to see? Or this is more of a question for me?
Sure, we're basically rebuilding these annual reports
Okay.
For the first time in a generation. So if there's things you'd like to see, and I can provide that information, I'd be happy to do it.
So what I would really strongly request, or let me know, I know there's the series of action items within the comprehensive plan. So basically anything with that label of plans, because I see you put it in a lot of your items, like what's in there. But I think that would also, generate some flow in terms of what people might expect. So, there's that spreadsheet's in there. So just anything with plans, having that, and like, hey, maybe where we're at with it.
Yeah.
That is a separate report altogether, what we've done in relation to the comprehensive plan. Like if, one of the things was increase the housing, how many units have been approved,
Right.
and how many new homes have been.
Yeah.
It's a separate report, that's.
I mean, I think.
No, the question, asking it, what it is.
I would imagine it's a section within this document. Like what steps do we take to implement the comprehensive plan? Like you said, how many housing units got approved? Maybe as Sean has noted during our reviews, that doesn't always mean they get built. But I mean, it's our job not to build them. It's our job to get them through the process. So, I think we can definitely add that. That tends to be, stuff like that's going to be a bit more time and labor intensive. But I will definitely, add that section to the report.
Okay, good suggestions, but be careful what you're asking for. You know, there'll be more and more, but this is very good. With that, could I get a motion for adjournment?